ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Khala, and I'm making this video just to raise awareness of the current events taking place in Syria. Because one, I know many people have limited knowledge, and two, I know very well there are actually people who are extremely ignorant to the events taking place in Syria, so I thought, the best thing is just to sit down and make a video. Now, I know many people have a misconception of Syria. I know many people automatically assume that Syria is a country where its people can speak out against the government. Syria is a country where its people can have their voices heard, their opinions heard. Syria is a country where the Syrian people can speak out against the government publicly. Unfortunately, this is not the case at all in Syria, because Syria is a dictatorship. It was ruled by a dictator, Hafez al-Assad, and is currently ruled by his son, Bashar al-Assad, who inherited his presidency, who was also a dictator, and who also rules with an iron fist, and who also has no mercy towards his people. Now in Syria, one cannot even demonstrate out in the streets without facing penalties. Let's take the Hama massacre, for example, of 1982. Now Hama is a city, and in 1982 the people decided to carry out peaceful protests. The people decided, it's about time. It's about time the state stops infringing our human rights. It's about time the state gives us freedom. It's about time we demand our freedom. And what happened is, in 1982, Hafez al-Assad, he sent in his troops to crush the demonstrations and to kill over 30,000 people in cold blood. 30,000 people. Their crime was that they only wanted a better life for themselves, better life for the Syrians, better life for their children, better future. Their crime was that. So over 30,000 people were killed, and it's like for 48 years the Syrian people have lived under oppression. The Syrian people have lived in fear. They felt intimidated. They felt just frustrated. They felt suppressed. And the irony here is the fact that they felt in fear from, it wasn't a foreign state that made them feel this way. It wasn't a foreign state who deprived them of their freedom. It was actually the Syrian state itself. It was the Syrian government itself. It's quite, ridiculous. You're like, how on earth can this happen? Where can this happen when the state deprives people of their freedom? But it actually happens in Syria. Now there's also the Saidnaya massacre of 2008. Now Saidnaya is a prison for political prisoners. Now in this prison, in 2008, the people in the prison, political prisoners, who by the way their only crime was the fact that they either wrote against the government, or they spoke out against the government, or they joined, for example, a different party that is in conflict with the Ba'ath regime, the Ba'ath party. Now, in 2008, political prisoners decided to carry out protests in prison, demanding for better living conditions. Now, the response was that they were killed. Political prisoners were killed. So that's why we call it the massacre, Saidnaya massacre of 2008. And just quite ridiculous. How can this happen? They only wanted better living conditions, and the response is that they get killed. But this is how it goes. And also, in 1962, the Syrian people have lived under the emergency law. Now, this law is the biggest infringement on the Syrian people's human rights. Okay, it encroaches on their freedom, encroaches on everything. Now, the emergency law allowed arbitrary arrests. The emergency law restricted the media. It didn't allow people to demonstrate. It allowed tappings. It basically gave power to the state to intervene to every aspect of the civilians' lives. Now, I know many of you will be saying, yes, but this emergency law has been upheld after the current demonstrations that have been taking place in Syria. I agree. However, it's just a symbol. It is proved to be ineffective, because the day this law was upheld, people were still being arrested, leftists were still being arrested, and people were still being killed. Despite that, there were also still are laws giving masses of power into the hands of the Syrian state to intervene with the civilians' lives. And this state, it was also coupled with legislation that actually asked the Syrians, to ask for a permit before they demonstrate. But then think of it, why would a state, how would a state who is killing his people, currently killing its people, currently killing its people, for the mere fact they're demonstrating want to give permits, it's quite ridiculous. But it's actually just a symbol, the emergency law it's like it still exists. Now, the revolution has taken place in Syria. It took place on the 15th of March. That was the main revolution. But what sparked it off? This is the thing, like, what was it that sparked this revolution? It was actually 15 10-year-old boys. There were 15 of them, all 10-year-olds, just young, vulnerable boys, who, they were inspired by the revolution in Tunisia, by the revolution in Egypt, and they drew anti-government slogans, freedom slogans, on the wall, and it's just simple, something like down with Bashar al-Assad, or something like that. Unfortunately, the response was harsh, but they were just children who didn't know that there are actually limits to their freedoms in Syria. There are things that, you'd think, oh, it's all right to do, but actually you can't do it at all. They were actually arrested and detained for 20 days. When they were released, some were brought back in coffins, some were dead, because they were tortured. Others came back in bloody rags, in rags all full of blood, and they had their nails torn off. And it's just like, how on earth can this happen? To children, 10-year-old children, 15 of them, who just knew nothing, who were just writing simple anti-government slogans, and that was the response. Now, of course, 48 of oppression, 48 years living in humiliation, that was the last straw for the people of Ghana. That was the city's first uprising. That was the last straw for them. So they got up, and they started in the thousands going out on the streets. And I mean, who would have believed that the Syrians would actually do that? I admit, as a Syrian, I was never expecting the Syrians to actually do that, but they did. The Syrians got up in the thousands. They started demonstrating, and they were demonstrating under the slogan "Silmiya, Silmiya, Silmiya," meaning peaceful. They were unarmed protesters. They're just simple protests, peaceful protests, demanding for their freedom. Wanting a better future for themselves, wanting a better future for their children, wanting a better future for the Syrians. And the Syrians, they went out under another slogan saying, "Wahid, Wahid, Wahid, Sha'b al-Suri Wahid," meaning one. The Syrian people are one. Despite religious differences, despite being Christian, despite being a Muslim, despite any political differences, we are one. We, the Syrian people, are one. And we went out. They went out and protested. Now, the response was extremely violent. There were the police responded to them by shooting at them, by firing at them, by firing at them with tear gas, by committing massacres against the people. There are currently massacres taking place in Syria against unarmed civilians who simply want their freedom, who simply want a better life for themselves, a better life for their children, and that's their crime. That's their only crime. They were shot at, they were fired at, they were killed in the most heinous ways, just extremely, if you search Google. But I just warn you, there are extremely graphic images that it's just unbelievable how the state can do this, let alone to its own people. Now, Zara city was under siege by the Syrian regime, and all electricity was cut off, all water was cut off, all food supplies was cut off. Now, other cities responded, wanted to rescue them. I wanted to actually say, it's about time we also get up. So Hama responded, Idlib responded, Talbisa responded, Deir ez-Zor responded. So many cities, just the protest just spread all across Syria, because all the Syrians just have had enough. All of them wanted a better future. All of them, thought, okay, this is our chance. It's time to get up. Now, since the 15th March till now, over 2,000 deaths have been recorded, and I'm talking about the deaths that have been recorded. Okay, these are not the deaths that we have no clue about. Okay, there are deaths that have not been registered yet. Over 12,000 people have been arrested simply for the fact that they want to demonstrate. Being arrested just because you want to demonstrate. Over thousands are missing. There are massacres currently happening in Syria, and this regime is not sparing the old. This regime is not sparing the young. This regime isn't sparing women. It has killed women. It has killed men. It has killed the elderly, and it's currently killing. It's not differentiating between old and young. It's not differentiating between rich and poor. It's just focusing. It's aiming to kill anyone who are standing in its way. And it's just, massacres. It's quite just unbelievable how one president can carry out massacres against his own people. Just killed in most heinous ways and cut off electricity and food supplies. And it's just quite sad how many people just don't know what's happening currently in Syria. Now, the thing is, I just thought, I've got to help raise awareness, and I think, anyone with an iota of a conscience would want to do the same, because, you don't have to be Christian, you don't have to be Muslim, you don't have to be an Arab, you don't even have to be Syrian, to know what's happening is wrong, to want to do something. This is a humanitarian issue, this is a humanitarian cause, where innocent people are being, are dying. We are the ones here, in the West, preaching beautiful principles of human rights, of democracy. These people, these Syrians just want democracy in their country. They want to live peacefully. They want to elect their president. They don't want their president to inherit the post. And I just thought, you can do something. You can do something to stop these massacres. The basic thing you can do is just spread awareness. Speak to your friend. Speak at uni. Speak to your neighbour. If you're living in England, write to your local MPs ask them to put tremendous pressure on Syria. If you're in America, write to your Senate. But the thing is, just do something. Hopefully, spread videos. That's all you have to do. And I also advise just to look up more into it, keep track of it. It's really unhealthy to live in a world where you're not aware of the current things taking place. So I hope this video has helped you, and I know it's pretty long, so I apologise. But I hope this has helped you. And let's just pray that this regime is fall soon, because it's time for Syrian people to live in peace and live happily and live without feeling fear or feeling intimidated. So thank you for your time.